Hey, welcome to another episode of The Cummins. I'm Mo. Today we're talking about seizures. Okay, did you know that there's multiple types of seizures, right? So if you're ready to unleash your perfect strand, get the book, Cannabis Chronicles, Unleashing Your Perfect Strand on Amazon by me, Mo. Monshell Hicks-Whitaker. You'll find it on Amazon. Unleash your perfect strand today. Okay, today we're talking about seizures. Did you know, I bet you didn't know, that there are multiple types of seizures, right? Even one that can cause you to have deja vu. Okay, let's get into it. Seizures, right, is the rapid firing of neurons in the brain, right? Um, your brain has the neurons sends chemical messages to go or to slow down or stop, right? And in a healthy brain, we have a mix of both, and they provide like the checks and balances to send chemicals through the rest of our body to do all that it does, right? And when a person is having a seizure, it is the stop receptors are taking a back seat, and the go receptors are just rapid firing all at once. And now they categorize the type of seizure based on the part of the brain that the neurons are starting to fire off at, right? Now, CBD, cannabis is great for seizures. There have been multiple studies over the years that's been done. Now, this has been difficult, right? Because marijuana is classified as class 1 drug, right? But after the Hemp Act 2018, where they separated the definition between THC, cannabis, and hemp or CBD, more studies have been done. Okay, there is this one company that have been doing tons and tons of studies over several years, right? Double-blind studies, gold award for studies, right? Where they give a certain group CBD and they give a certain group placebo, and it is unknown which is which, and they've studied this. Okay, so what they find is that CBD sends signals, it connects to the receptors in the brain, the CB1 receptors in the brain, that's telling your neurons to slow the fuck down, okay? Stop rapid firing, slow the fuck down, let's chill out, take a break, right? And this stops seizures, right? So this particular company came out with this medicine called Epidiolex, right? And it is comprised of 98% CBD. A legit CBD medicine, okay? So they've done all these studies, they've done these trials starting in mice and then in humans, and they found it to be very effective. It was very few people that it did not work in, or people who left the studies because of the side effects. Some of the side effects was they becoming lethargic, right? They became really sleepy, weak. A few people got nauseous, wanted to vomit, stuff like that. So if you're ready to unleash your perfect strand, get the book, Cannabis Chronicles, Unleashing Your Perfect Strand on Amazon by me, Mo. Monshell Hicks-Whitaker. You'll find it on Amazon. Unleash your perfect strand today. Okay, part of the thing you want to look for when you're looking for your perfect strand of cannabis, you want to make sure that the company that it's coming from is consistent with the growing standards, because the properties of cannabis can change from grow to grow and from strand to strand based on the conditions that it's in. What is so great about this company that make Epidiolex is that they make sure that the conditions are the exact same. They use the same strand. They make sure the conditions are the exact same. They test their products, right? So they know exactly what's in it, which means you know exactly what you're putting in your body. This is great for seizures for people with LGS syndrome and for Dravet syndrome types of seizures. Check out this video right here. This doctor is explaining more on the different types of seizures and how it affects the brain.
Epilepsy is a condition when there is excess electricity in the brain and having spontaneous seizures. Do you know that shaking all over is only a minority of the seizures and epilepsy? Yes, it can only happen in quarter of the time. There are many different types of seizures that can happen, and it all depends on where the seizure can start in the brain. Today, you'll be surprised to learn how many different seizure types we have, and think of it as a light switch. So this light is connected to the light bulb, and wherever this switch is connected to, it will show up something different. Each brain area has a unique and different function, and wherever this electricity happens, you will feel or have something different. For example, if the seizure happens in the memory area, you can have deja vu, which means that you feel something that you have experienced this before. You will say, wait, I have deja vu all the time. Welcome to the club, buddy. But make sure to wait until the end of this video because I will reveal all different types of seizures and epilepsy that can happen. And this will be a very cool journey for all those new revelations. Well, how do the seizures present? Well, the International League Against Epilepsy had made a very nice classifications of all the different seizures types, which is an excellent tool to help us to understand and study those seizures. Let's start with the generalized seizures. This happens when the seizures and electricity happens in all over the brain. The first and most common type is the generalized tonic-clonic seizures, which will be happening like in two phases. The first one is the tonic phase when all the muscles stiff, and then it comes the clonic phase. What happens really is that all the brain goes into on fire and electricity, and then you will have the tonic phase. And then the body and the brain start to call the firefighter to stop this activity from happening. And then they will be successful sometime to break this, and this will be clonic. And then you go back to the tonic and go back to clonic until the end of the seizure. Then comes the clonic seizures, which can happen in one part of the body or the whole body, which is called myoclonic seizures. And it happens a lot in children. And I have a kid who had this myoclonic seizure. So every morning, the kid goes in the morning and start to eat his cereal. And then he will have the jerk and then drop the cereal, drop the milk, drop that. So he stained his carpet in his room. So I call it dirty rug syndrome. And it is interesting that lots of kids have this and they are just flow under the radar and just call, oh, they're just clumsy or having those jerks, when in fact they might be having epilepsy. And then we have atonic seizures, which means that there will be sudden loss of tone and the patient will fall down to the ground, or sometimes just one limb loses the tone. And it is very serious in some conditions when patients have lots and lots of falls and they keep falling and hitting the ground. And sometimes it can lead lots of injuries. And patients can be wheelchair bound or having to wear a helmet all the time to protect themselves. And then the epileptic spasm. So this is a special type of seizures that can happen when the children, usually happens in babies, they have spasm, and this happens like this. They will have a spasm and then they will come back, spasm and then come back. And sometimes their eyes will move along with this spasm. And it is very important to recognize this type of seizure because the treatment is necessary urgently, because if you don't treat it, it can affect the development of the child. And sometimes the seizures have without movements, and it can happen like in absence seizures when children will be doing their things and then all of a sudden they will stop and start blinking their eyes, and then they will go back after a few seconds. And it is important to realize that in the classroom, some kids will be studying and then they have a very fragmented lecture because every few seconds they will have this absence and then everything does not make sense to them at the end of the day. Let me know down in the comment what type of seizures you have seen or you know of. Alright, those were the generalized seizures. Let's go to the focal seizures, and I think this is where the fun lies. In those seizure types, we have seizures with intact awareness when you have the seizure and you're still aware of your surrounding, and sometimes it is spreading more and can cloud somebody's consciousness and be impaired awareness. And those types of seizures used to be called simple partial and complex partial seizures. All right, now it is time to get the brain. All right, so the first type of seizure is the motor seizure. So here is the motor cortex where you can move your arm and leg. And if the seizure happens in this area, then you will have shaking in the arm or leg or the face. And sometimes the seizure marches from one area and spread to the other areas of the brain. And this was described before by Dr. Hewling Jackson in his wife at the beginning. Also in the motor seizures can be clonic movements or atonic. The arm will drop. All right, the second type is the emotional area. So the emotions all lie in this area. It's called the amygdala and in the frontal lobe as well. So if we have a seizure in the emotional area, which can happen a lot, then the patient will have intense anxiety and fear, and sometimes it can be also a strong emotion such as sudden crying or sudden laughter, and all of those can be seizures. I have a patient, the first time he had seizures were he was in the meeting at his job, and then all of a sudden he started crying without being controlled. Start crying, and then after that he became unresponsive and they went into a big seizure. And it is important to differentiate between regular anxiety and panic attacks and these types of seizures, and lots of times those types of seizures will be missed as anxiety. The key here is that the seizures will progress, so they will start in one area and continue to other areas. So if you have this intense anxiety and then you will pause and stop and then you have shaking, that is a seizure. And if it's only anxiety, sometimes it's just a panic attack. All right, the second type, it can be in the temporal region when you can lose awareness and have some automatic behavior. So automatic behavior can be something like you're sitting there and you start picking on yourself and be unresponsive, and this type of seizure is called automatism. And it is very important to realize that this is a part of the seizure. So here what happens, somebody had a seizure while driving, and then he had an accident, and then the police came to check on him, and the patient was unresponsive because he was having a seizure. He was picking on himself. And this is a very dangerous scenario because the police officer starts saying, hey, hands off the street, hand on the steering wheel, show me your hands. And then the patient is like just picking on himself, and it can lead to a disaster if you do not recognize. And now we teach police officers that those are seizure types, so they will be aware and not have overreaction to this type of seizures. All right, now let's move to the sensation area. So in this part of the brain, it is called the sensory cortex, and this area is responsible for sensations and feeling. If you have a seizure in that area, then you might have some intense pain, tingling, or numbness, or changes in the sensation. And one of the most interesting and sometimes bizarre seizures can happen in the frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe, the front of the head, this area is very interesting because it carries so many different functions, and seizures in the frontal lobe can be associated with emotions such as like intense fear or grimacing of the face, and sometimes it's associated with sudden very bizarre movements and jerking, especially when it comes out of sleep. Somebody will wake up out of sleep screaming and moving and flipping around and even running, and I have seen it all in different patients, and it can be associated with some paranoia and other different types of behaviors. And it also, because it controls our desires and who we are, seizures in this lobe can have some intense desires. Somebody had seizures with intense drinking water need. Sometimes they had intense feel to urinate and pee. Sometimes they have intense fear and all different kinds. So it's really kind of very interesting to have. All right, in other areas, where deep inside the brain in this area, it is called the insula. Insula is interesting because it can control the autonomic function. And in this area, if you have a seizure there, sometimes people will have copious mucus and salivation from their mouth, and they can have a piloerection, means like a goosebumps in the skin, hot flashes, or even like some areas of skin becomes red and all of that. Or sometimes it can control the heart and the breathing, so you can have a rapid heartbeat, or the heart will be slow, or even stops, which can be dangerous if it happens. And let's go back to the occipital cortex. So the occipital cortex here in the back of the head, it is responsible for the perception of vision. And if you have seizures in this area, then you might have some vision changes, such as seeing flashes of light or bubbles or any visual phenomena. So seizures are really vary between one person and another, and it changes from which area of the brain it arises from. And as you can see, there are so many different types of seizures. And now we learn all different types of seizures, and we need to control them. And to learn how to control them and the best tips and tools you can use to control the seizures best, you can see this video, and see you in the next one. Salam.
Okay, welcome back. So now let me explain to you how CBD helps. So in the video, the doctor talked about the different types of seizures and the different types of brain, and how the neurons, which are brain cells, send neurotransmitters, right? Which is chemical messages that's telling your brain, it's sending messages from neuron to neuron to neuron, synapsing off, telling it what to do, right? Telling your body to perform whatever function that is performed depending on what part of the brain is in. Now, when you're having a seizure, it's like you're glitching. Your brain is overactive. It's firing off too much. In your body, the cannabinoids in your body, the endocannabinoids that are naturally in your body, would tell those neurotransmitters to slow down. It would bind to the CB1 receptors on the neuron, slowing it down, right? Now, for some people, due to various different reasons, right? Trauma, DNA, whatever, environment, you may not produce enough endocannabinoids. So getting it from an external source like CBD would be ideal, right? Now, I'm not a medical professional, but I would suggest to you to take the entire plant, because the synergy of the plant is something about Mother Nature that put it all together. And you want to be careful, right, about getting it from companies when you are taking it for specific medical purposes, right? Not just to get high, which is nothing wrong with that. But if you're taking it for specific medical purposes, you want to look for something that is grown by a company that's not growing it for the potency of the THC. You want the plant to be as natural a state as possible, coming straight from out of the earth, right? You want to have that synergy of all the properties that's in the plant, like working in harmony. So something that is more balanced with THC and CBD would be ideal, right? And then we get down to the flavonoids and stuff like that. Personal preference, although some of those do help with certain things too. But for today, what matters is the CBD that is in the plant, right? And the THC. You want to keep the THC small, because that can have adverse effects. It can lead to paranoia and, all sorts of other issues if you take too much. Now, let me throw in that too much THC can actually lead to seizures. Don't believe me? Check it for yourself. You're looking for your perfect strand. You want to start off low and slow, okay? And really pay attention to your body. And the book is also a chart, right? Got a chart put in there all for you so that you can more effectively track your progress, so that you won't have to rely on memory, right? When you are planning out, when you're searching for your perfect strand, which is the perfect strand that's for your body, because we're all different and it's okay. There is a legal difference, right? There's a physical difference between weed and hemp, right? Hemp is usually grown for the fibers, right, to make all sorts of textiles, um, and it has a higher THC content, right? Less than 0.03% THC. And now, by law, hemp is legal to grow. Um, in the state of Virginia, THC is legal to grow within limits, right? And you want to find a good testing facility to test your products. And there are machines that you can get online. Some of them only test for the THC and the CBD. There are more expensive machines that uh, test a bit more for the different cannabinoids. Now, there are places you can send off a sample, like $50, right? And you'll get a whole workout. You want to test your products. You want to test your products. When you go to a dispensary to purchase your products, you want to make sure that they tested their products, that they are selling you products from growers who have had it tested. Because you want to know what you're getting. It's important that you know what you're putting into your body. And not all weed is made equal. Okay? Even with the highest potency, not all weed is made equal. You want to test it. And make sure they test it and have accurate results, right? In your notes, when you're looking for your perfect strand, you want to write down the companies that you actually got it from. You want to write down the test results. You want to write down the different mixtures, the cannabinoids, the flavonoids. You want to write down what is in that, because you may find another strand that also works, that has a slightly different genetic makeup, but then what you'll find when you compare is that there are certain things that works best for your body, that gets the job done. And like always, especially when you're taking other medicines, you want to consult your doctor. Your doctor is your health partner. You want to work with them about the best route to take for you. Basically, the type of seizure that can cause you to have, the fuck is the name of that? Deja vu. Hey, welcome to another episode of The Becomings. I'm Mo. Seizures is the synapsing off rapid fire in the brain, the AG1.